Hey, welcome back. Today, we are going to chart a course for leadership excellence with a guest who brings a wealth of experience from the high seas. I'm joined by Mark Fava, a retired naval flight officer and the author of Lessons from the Admiral, Naval Wisdom, and Sea Stories for Leaders. He's going to join us to share some insights gleaned from his time as an aide to a Navy Admiral. Mark, welcome aboard.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Your book draws a fascinating parallel between naval leadership and success in the business world. Mark, what sparked the idea to translate your military experience into actionable advice for business leaders?
Yeah, look, what I figured out was, I was 6 years active duty and then 24 in the reserves. So when I'm in the reserves, I'm promoting as a naval flight officer, but I'm back in a law firm or in a corporate setting. And what I figured out was what was working on the reserves as a naval officer on the weekend worked in the corporate world, and it worked in the law firm. Same basic leadership principles. And I said, gosh, wouldn't it be great if I could share that with everybody else? And I thought about it for, 20 or 30 years and finally wrote it 2 years ago. So happy to have it finally come out.
I love it, and our listeners will as well, and we'll make sure that they can find it. Mark, in the book, you emphasize the importance of knowing what your boss expects. Can you elaborate on that and provide maybe some specific strategies for new employees to quickly grasp their superiors' priorities and expectations?
Exactly. So look, my first day on this job, right? It's a high pressure job. You're an aide for an admiral. The admiral had fired the aide, my predecessor, 2 times. So you're coming in on a pretty intense situation. And the first week he set me down and he said, shut the door. These are my expectations. And it was very simple, Scott. He told me about 5 things. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. Some jobs you're going to do above your pay grade. Some jobs are well below your pay grade. You have to do both of them very well. And I said, yes, sir. I like to be on time. Don't be late. Yes, sir. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I said, okay, if those are the 5 things I have to do to meet his expectations, I got it, right? And so anytime I started a new job, if my boss didn't tell me that, because that was going to be the measuring stick, I would ask. I would say, hey, look, how am I doing? And if the boss, some people say, well, he didn't have any time for me. Well, then ask his administrative assistant. Ask your coworkers. Know what the boss expects because you're going to be measured by that.
So true. Mark, on that topic, you share an anecdote about using a blowtorch to attach a flag to a car in freezing weather. That's good timing for where this is a good time to have this conversation right now.
Yeah.
Beyond that amusing image, which I know our Chicago listeners can appreciate very, very well, what broader lesson about adaptability and creative problem solving can leaders take from this experience?
Yeah, as a follower, what I figured out very quickly was the leader didn't want problems. The leader wanted solutions, right? And I think as a leader, the flip side is you have to empower your people to know that they can come in, an open door with the problem, and then you train them and say, don't give me the problem, identify the problem, but tell me the 3 or 4 solutions, and then tell me your recommendation. So as a leader, every time now, there's an issue, I would just empower my people. Look, you figure out what the solution is. You tell me the recommendation. If I agree with you, I'm going to tell you to run with it. And that's just wonderful to empower people that way. And the Admiral did the same thing to me. The expectation was not to come in with a problem because, that's not what a good employee does. It's if you have a problem, identify the problem, come in with a solution, and then a recommendation.
Yeah, I'm chatting with the author of Lessons from the Admiral, Naval Wisdom and Sea Stories for Leaders, but don't let that title confuse you. We're chatting with Mark Fava, again, a retired naval flight officer who is sharing some really, really invaluable insights gleaned from his time as an aide to a Navy Admiral that are applicable, I promise, to each and every one of you that are joining us, regardless of what industry you may be in. And I want to go there in the conversation, Mark. In today's fast-paced business environment, how can leaders cultivate that military precision that you highlight in your book, particularly when it comes to time management, meeting deadlines, and maintaining that attention to detail?
Yeah, I tell you, the transformation, and I'm sure you see this, but the transformation from the military to the law firm in the corporate world was, you know how it is in our Army or our Navy or our Air Force culture. I mean, when the clock hits noon, your time is up, right? If you got 5 minutes, you got 5 minutes. And I was just blown away, both in the corporate world and otherwise, that, that time management wasn't there. So I'm very clear to the people that come into my meeting. The meeting starts on time. You can come in 10 minutes early, but the door's going to be shut at noon. We're going to finish on time. And if you have 15 minutes on the agenda, don't come in with a 40-page PowerPoint. Come in with, 10 minutes of talking and expect 5 minutes of questions. And I think, again, if you tell your people that's your expectation, they like it, right? They understand that, hey, you better go in there. If he tells you 15 minutes, Fava's going to keep you to 15 minutes, and you better be there on time. And it's freeing for everybody because they know what you expect, and then everybody is on time and the job gets done.
Absolutely. Mark, we're going to go to a break in a moment, but when we come back, we'll pick lots more out from your book and from your stories. But I want to leave our listeners in our 30 seconds remaining with one sea story or a piece of wisdom from your book that you hope listeners will carry with them. What will it be?
Yeah, I always expect the unexpected, right? And if you know every day what your plan is, when the unexpected occurs, you're a lot better off because at least you knew the baseline plan and you're prepared to handle the unexpected.
Well, I'm chatting with Mark Fava, retired naval flight officer, author of Lessons from the Admiral, Naval Wisdom, and Sea Stories for Leaders. I can end this part of our conversation with lots of jokes about the Navy. As many of our listeners know, I'm an Army guy, but I have to say that the Navy whipped us this year in the Army-Navy game, and so all the props to our brothers and sisters in the Navy. Again, I'm chatting with Mark Fava. When we come back, we've got a lot more small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Don't touch that dial. Okay, and we're back. We're chatting with the author of Lessons from the Admiral, Naval Wisdom, and Sea Stories for Leaders. That's Mark Fava. Great conversation, Mark. And we know that you have had a very distinguished career in the military, beginning, as you said, active duty. You continued in the Naval Reserve. You've been an aviation attorney in your career as well. So, Mark, how has the leadership lessons that you learned from the Admiral, that you talk so much about, how has it helped you navigate the legal profession and achieve success in a corporate setting?
Yeah, I realized it's all the same thing. The attention to detail transfers very well to preparing a legal pleading, preparing for a deposition, preparing for trial. Guess what? You go into the courtroom, you better know the judge. You better know how the judge is ruled. You better know what the judge likes or doesn't like. So it was almost, transparent once I figured that out. And likewise, it's a lot of hard work and you're going to put in a lot of hours, especially if you're going to a law firm. So I thought it was just a wonderful and easy transition. Once again, that I figured out what worked in the Navy, worked in the law firm, and worked in the corporate world.
That's awesome. So, Mark, I want to actually go all the way back in time to you coming into the Navy. I mean, can you ever have imagined this career that you've had? Tell us a little bit about your story of service and why you came in initially. And I guess what lessons would you share with the young Mark that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, and I've got 3 daughters, and they're all going through that phase in their life right now, one in graduate school, one in undergrad, and one in high school. But listen, I got there because I was looking for a scholarship to go out of state, and I ended up getting again, a lot of this is happenstance. And so what I would share with people is, everything typically works out 5 years later, just the way it should. I got to Chapel Hill on a Naval ROTC scholarship. By process of elimination, I said, boy, I don't want to be on a surface ship. I really don't think I can make it in the Marines, and I know I can't make it in a submarine. So let me just go aviation. And I did, and I ended up in a plane that tracked Soviet submarines in the Cold War. The guy I was working for is a mentor, a lawyer. I was the legal officer. He said, hey, why don't you come work on the Admiral's staff and become an Admiral's aide? I liked doing that. And then I said, look, I think I'm so interested in this, I might want to go to law school. So it was just, one little thing after another. Call it karma, call it fate, call it a blessing. And I worried about it all the time. I worried about getting out of the Navy. I worried about going into the reserves. But at the end of the day, it worked out incredibly well. And I was able to transfer the knowledge of being an aviator and flying with the legal concept and component. And then ended up getting a job as a chief operations officer at Delta Airlines 41 days before 9/11. And that made me an aviation attorney.
What a journey, Mark Fava. I appreciate you joining us, and I don't want to give away all the secrets over here because you've got a lot of advice in the book, and I want to make sure we leave our listeners with that. Mark, how can folks find the book and perhaps get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So the website, my book website is very simple. It's markcfava.com, all together, all one word. And you can find the book at every major online bookstore. It's online at Amazon. Just type in Mark Fava book and you'll find it. And same thing with the other major retailers, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. And on the website, you can get in touch with me that way. There's a contact me form. Love to hear from you. Love to talk about the book.
Absolutely. Well, you've shared so much great wisdom and advice, and really appreciate it. I hope it's inspired many of our listeners, not only in the lessons that you can learn, again, from unique careers like Mark has had, but also certainly we applaud and appreciate all the folks that step up to serve. And what a journey, and best of luck to your entire family, Mark. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap this week on Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. Of course, we'll be back next Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 560 The Answer. But you can also find all of our shows, 11 plus years, all available on my website, syklein.com, or your favorite podcast app. But do me a favor, make sure you rate and review on those podcast apps and get in touch with me. I want to hear what you think and what you want to talk about on your program. Again, you're listening to Get Down to Business to Success. Let's get down to business. We'll see you next week.